Nabihah Iqbal, how are you?
Good, thanks.
Welcome.
It's nice to be back in Australia and to see you again.
Yes, likewise. Tell me a bit about, how's the tour been?
It's been amazing. It's my first live tour in Australia, even though I've been here before for DJing.
Yep.
And it's been, every single show's been sold out. We played the last one here in Sydney last night. Done 3 in Sydney and then played in Melbourne and Brisbane as well. And every single one's felt amazing with really good crowds and just like people who are so enthusiastic about the album and like all the music and just meeting me as well. It's just a very surreal feeling actually to be on the opposite side of the world and see such an amazing response to my music.
Yeah, that's so cool. I want to chat to you a bit about the album and I guess the process and the journey about the album. And but first, like you're a broadcaster, writer, you're a DJ, and you know you've been with a couple of different radio stations that are quite prominent and world renowned, and how's it been for you? Like you've always been a musician, but how's it been for you for that whole transition to kind of like to get that whole sphere of being recognized as a musician and as an artist? I mean, while you've always been that, but like that people have recognized, known you as a DJ and a broadcaster, so how's that been for you?
Well, I guess that experience has kind of shifted
yes.
over the past year since my record came out. It's my second album. So, and I've been, my first record came out in 2013, and that's also the same year that I started doing my show on NTS radio. So, like my first like foray into radio broadcasting. So the two and two have gone hand in hand, and I feel like they've both kind of grown together, and there's definitely people who might find out about me first through my own music and then discover the radio shows, and vice versa. There are people who might discover me through my radio shows or my DJ sets and then also find out that I make my own music. But since Dreamer came out at the end of April 2023, obviously this whole last year in terms of touring and just promo and everything has been very album focused, and it definitely feels like a bit of a tipping point kind of moment where suddenly, I've been lucky enough to be playing shows this whole year all around the world, and everywhere I go the venues are full, and so that's kind of like it feels like something else is happening now where it's just bubbling up a bit more. And in terms of like international recognition, it seems like it's growing, and yeah, like in a lot of places where I go and I meet the fans after the shows, a lot of them also listen to my DJ sets and radio shows as well. So both things are growing together, but it does feel different and sort of extra special when you get recognized for your own creativity and your own art, because whilst I love doing all of these different things within the sphere of music, I guess, the thing that's most personal to me is my own music that I make, and the feelings that I get from performing that on a stage to like a sold out crowd in Sydney or Melbourne or anywhere else is just, I haven't really figured out how to describe the feeling yet. But next month in February, I'm taking my first break since touring like for nearly a whole year. So I'm going to think about all of those things and figure out what the feeling is. But it's all really good. Yeah.
Is that the vision? Like, is it something that you kind of intentionally wanted to do to kind of shift, or is it something that you kind of, or you're just saying where it goes? Like, is that,
I mean, like making music, I've always been playing instruments growing up, and then since I was a teenager, just like kind of messing around trying to make my own songs or music. It's always been there going on. I never actually planned to do music full time anyway. So I feel like everything that's happening now is kind of, it just feels like it's a bit out of my control almost.
Right.
Because it was always a dream, but I never really thought like it would become a reality.
Yeah.
Because I was doing law before I was doing music.
Yeah.
And also like, just growing up in like a Pakistani parent household in England, pursuing music as a career was not really like the number one priority.
Yeah.
So that's why I just feel extra lucky. And also, like, it makes you realize that there's some things in your life that you cannot plan. Like, I feel like I was meant to be doing this, and this year's made me realize it even more, you know, as I feel like I'm growing more as like as a music artist, and people paying attention to and respecting my own art. That's really special.
What do you think's different between now from when you did weighing the hearts and this album? Like, what do you think's been significantly different in that shift for you?
Probably just my life experiences, I think. So when I look back now to the process of making my first album, Weighing of the Heart, at that time it felt like the biggest, hardest thing I'd ever done, which it was. But now when I look back to that period and compare it to the last few years of making Dreamer, that felt like a total kind of breeze in comparison, where it was just like, for the first time I had my own music studio and I got a grant and I had all this time to make my first album, and it was just sort of like tapping into all different thoughts and emotions that I'd been thinking about probably for my whole life. You know, it's like a culmination of all your life experiences in that first record. And then the second one is really about things that happened to me in the last few years, and it's been quite an intense time really, in both positive and negative way, but I felt like the happiest I've ever felt. I felt the saddest I've ever felt. I felt like the most ill and sick I've ever been, which was something that I really wasn't used to. And so you have these quite like extreme experiences and emotions, and like that made me go into places where I never thought I'd be, like in terms of how I felt mentally and things like that. And so it made the whole process of trying to make an album with all of those things as the backdrop really, really difficult. So like, I know that I've been through a lot more in the time of making this record, and then I think it just comes across in the music.
Why do you think that's been different in the way, I guess, like from a people resonating with that? Like, it seems that there's not only an internal shift for you, but externally there seems to be like this second album has resonated with an audience, like a wider audience, and people have, you know, why do you think that? Is there any explanation to that, you think?
The only thing that I can think of to say on that point is that the music's just like a completely honest, the authentic reflection of how I was feeling and the things I was thinking about, and
so it connects with people more, you think?
Yeah, and that's like, you know, I wasn't doing anything else like drastically differently, but it's just about that, and, you know, really putting everything into the music, and then somehow that's just taken it on a different journey now since its release, and people definitely connect with it on like quite a deep emotional level, because now I've been playing shows for 8 months, and at every show people come up to me to talk to me about their own relationship to the music, or they'll send me messages you know, online, and there's a lot of like patterns in the kind of things people say. Like, what, you know, I hear a lot of people saying that my music, this record, helped them to get through like a really difficult time, like soundtrack their whole year, soundtrack breakups, but also soundtrack like relationships starting as well. So it's like, you know, a lot of really happy things, a lot of sad things, a lot of difficult things. You know, I remember on the America tour when we played in Seattle, this woman came to the show who was really sick with cancer and on chemotherapy, and she didn't have any hair, and she said that she couldn't normally go out of the house because she's too weak, but she said that my music had helped her so much to give her energy to feel like she wants to recover and get better, and she came out to the show.
Wow.
And so and it was emotional, and that's just one example, but there's been other things like that as well, where people have come and they've really like opened up to me about why they're there and what the music means to them. And I think it's just because I put all my emotion in the music, and then they can feel it as well. So maybe they can connect with it more.
Yeah. Well, I know that you, from past interviews and seeing at your performances from the live shows, you've shared, which I think is great, by the way, that you tell people about a bit of background about the music and where you pull a lot of your inspiration. And something that I noticed is authors and poets and particular books and poetry that's been a huge inspiration for you for the creative process. And the other day I heard you say that that during the creation of this album there was times of darkness, that in those moments of despair and challenge, and where did you pull from the same inspiration to get you through those dark times, those dark moments where you kind of second guessed the album and you were second guessing yourself, believing in yourself? Where did you pull from that inspiration to kind of get you through and help you believe in yourself?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess, one of the main setbacks was that my music studio got burgled and I lost 2 years of work.
Wow.
Back up. That was like a real shock to the system. And then I really felt like kind of paralyzed after that happened. You're just in so much shock. And it's not really about losing the computer or equipment. It's more about the work. Obviously now I always back up. But then straight after that, I had to go out to Pakistan in an emergency because my granddad, who's my favourite person, had a brain hemorrhage and it was really serious and he was in hospital, so we went out there. Luckily, he recovered, but in that moment, it's like the importance of family really eclipsed everything else and made me realise something. And then whilst I was out there with my granddad, and then when he got better and I was telling him what happened with the burglary, he was just like, well, there's no point sitting there and complaining about it. You just have to keep going and start again. And he was really saying these things that motivated me, and he was right. So, that's like one example, I guess, where it's like I was feeling really bad, but then, you have someone around you who really cares about you and who's good at just telling you what needs to happen next. But then there were other times as well where mentally I was just feeling really depressed and not good at all. And I don't know, I guess that's also why I went out of London to make the album. I made most of this album in the countryside, completely by myself, in Scotland and also in England. And that was like quite, I packed up my whole studio in my car, drove 10 hours to this really remote part of Scotland, turned my phone off. There's nothing. It was literally a 2-hour walk to the nearest shop. It was just nothing.
Yeah.
It was just like absolute, like, serene, natural beauty, and just, the most kind of like beautiful place to work. I felt really blessed. And then I was just like, okay, I've got this opportunity and I'm here and I need to make the most of it. And then I motivated myself because I said to myself, if I don't leave this residency without, like having made good progress on the record or finishing the record, whatever it was. I mean, I went away 4 times over the course of making this album to the countryside to just do it all. Then, I would kick myself. So I was like, I have to just do it. And I feel like that's like a trait that you'd find in anyone who's self-employed, really, or, in charge of their own career or whatever it is, whether you're an artist or a businessman or whatever it is. It's like you have to motivate yourself, because if you don't, then nothing's going to happen. You don't have a boss to answer to. You don't have someone telling you to like turn up to work at this time and work this many hours and meet this deadline. It's not like that at all. So you just have to, when you realize that, it's like you are your own motivator, and you just have to get it done. And, I'd been through so many setbacks, and then when I was, probably over 2021 and 2022, when I was up in the countryside doing those residencies, I just knew that I wanted to make the most of it. Yeah. Well,
that's kind of like what I wanted to ask you about, because I know that you pull from, environments and from art and music, and I see you as a creative person, but I also see you as a big boss, like you. I always like you're honestly, you inspire me, like I that I find an amazing quality to have, that you're able to kind of push through. Because look, the reason why I bring these kind of discussions is because my podcast is about this sort of stuff, where people who are creatives and also entrepreneurial, where we've got to wear those hats, and we've got to be our own boss. And I wanted to elaborate with you and discuss that with you today about when you put that boss hat on,
This is the boss hat.
Yeah. So it sounds like family was a big part. You said your grandfather helped you with that, but yeah, tell me a bit about that, a bit more about that.
Well, I mean, my granddad's been my number one fan and supporter since day one, honestly. When I'd 2012, 2013, just starting to make music, and I would put music out and DJ and do radio, and he was just always, from that moment, this is your dream, this is what you love, you have to pursue it. Even when the rest of my family and even my parents were like, what are you doing? Because they thought they were going to have a daughter that would be a barrister. So no, I'm always so grateful to my granddad for that, because he really is one of the most important people in my life, and someone that I care about so much. So just to even have that voice from the start, to be I believe in you and I want you to do this and you're going to do it, it's been really helpful. And I'll always be grateful for that. But then in terms of motivation and being your own boss, if you don't do that, what are you gonna do? Yeah. But it's really difficult. People I think people don't often realize that, because they'll just see the front facing.
That's right.
The facade of what you're achieving as an artist, right? And especially now with socials,
there's a lot behind it.
Exactly. They'll look at Instagram and they'll be like, wow, she's touring here and she's touring there and she's selling out these venues, and people love the album and all of those things, which are all true and amazing. But then the flip side to that is that it's really tiring and it's really intense to tour, and it's a lot of effort, obviously physically, mentally, financially, to be I'm gonna do these things. And right now I'm not at the stage really where I'm making a lot of money necessarily from touring, especially with a full live band, because I think in order to really make that happen, then you've got to be able to play bigger venues where the fees will be bigger and they'll be able to cover your overheads. But for me, I think this last year has been not really worrying too much about
those
that.
nuances.
Exactly. As long as I can make ends meet, and I feel lucky that somehow I'm managing to do it, it's more about just getting the music out there and just connecting with the people, because the physical experience of actually performing in a space with the audience right there, and then having that opportunity, as you mentioned, to tell the people about the stories behind the music, that's really, really important to me. And so if I can make that work, I want to do that. And so I guess this whole last year, I see it as an investment year, I guess. But then also I feel so happy that committed to all these tours, you're taking the financial risk, you're putting your body and your mind through a lot of exhaustion and intensity, but then the reception that I've had at every place I've played has just been amazing.
It seems like it's going, it's building, it's growing.
And that's just the music that's doing its thing. And that's what's the power of music, because I feel it doesn't matter what level artist you are. You could be a small artist, you could be a massive artist. When you're releasing music, you actually don't have any idea about what's going to happen.
Exactly.
What record, what journey is that record going to go on? You just don't know. That's why some records that are put out by huge artists they might flop, or they might not do as well, and you think, wow, that's crazy, because this is a stadium level artist. And then other times you'll have people who just come out of nowhere and they release a record, and then it just connects with so many people, and there's no formula for that. So that's why I just feel this record somehow has managed to encapsulate this kind of energy and feeling in it that people all around the world are picking up on. And it is, I mean, in April it'll be a year since it's come out. But for me, it just feels like actually this is the start of the momentum, and I'm excited to just see what happens next. And then I've also got to start thinking about the next record. Yeah. I'm still in full-on tour mode. So let's see.
And your husband, you're both creatives. Like, do you guys bounce each other off, like, with that kind of motivation and sort of support with that?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So my husband, his name's Nicholas Daly, and he's a menswear designer. And we've been together since 2013, actually, which is when I was first starting out doing my stuff with music, and he was just beginning with his menswear label. So it feels very special to be in a relationship with someone where you started that relationship when you were both starting your own creative journeys, and we've seen each other grow from the absolute beginning. And he's doing so well with his brand, and he works so hard.
Awesome.
and he's really talented, and it's more than just clothes, I think, with what he does. Again, his whole vision and ethos and the community that he's created around his menswear brand also touches a lot of people. I think they connect to it, and it's really a lot about community and feeling and energy, music, identity, all of these things, which is maybe more, it can be quite a difficult thing to achieve when you're just talking about a physical garment, at the most basic level. But no, I'm so proud of what he does, and we help each other a lot, because I think
you're both creatives, and you're building something of your own,
and
but you can share those journeys. Yeah.
I think it's good that we're in different fields. I feel like if we were both doing fashion, or if we were both doing music, then maybe it'd be get way too competitive. And also at the same time, if one of us was pursuing our passion and the other one was working in a job that they didn't enjoy, that again also would not be a good balance. I mean, it's difficult because
you're both on the road.
Exactly, So it can be quite difficult, but then I feel really grateful that there's this level of mutual understanding that we have, that we both understand what each other's work requires. We know that our careers are quite demanding and take a lot of time, and the way that I'm my own boss, he's also his own boss, and then it's hard to ever switch off, 24/7 you're thinking about your work. Him more than me, I'd say. I think maybe girls are a little bit better at being okay, now I'm just going to chill for a couple of days. I don't know. Or maybe it's just because my brain doesn't operate at the same non-stop intensity of his. I don't know. But he's definitely better at doing emails than me. That's for sure.
Can I ask you? I've heard you mention it a few times in the shows as well. Is it that this? I think it's the song "Closer Lover." It's about your friend. Is that?
Oh no. "Closer Lover" is about. Well, actually, it probably is a little bit. Yeah.
Well, but the friend who passed.
Yeah. Well. There's a lot of the music about that friend on the album, actually.
Right. So it's not just that song.
It's not one song.
Can I ask you who that is, if you don't mind sharing?
Yeah, it was my friend called Sophie, who's also a musician.
I thought so, yeah.
And it was just, I mean, I'm still so sad about the whole thing, because, I mean, not just in terms of personal loss, but just loss to music and creativity in general. But and for me as well, it's the first time experiencing the sudden loss of one of your friends who's you're a similar age. You should still really be in the world. So
it's such a tragic loss, how it happened as well. It's just I want to know, if you don't mind sharing, how did that help you a lot in sort of processing the loss, building this album, because it's very, I know that it's very been a very important part of this journey for you, if you don't mind sharing.
I mean, I do mention sometimes when I'm talking about songs, this is a song about one of my friends that died, but I don't talk about it too much, because actually it's really,
it's difficult.
It's still really upsetting for me. And And the main thing is that like we had such close friendship that was built around music, and Sophie helped me so much in terms of like just like motivating me and just also teaching me a lot about music production. You know, I remember like the first time I was recording my own vocals and including that in the music, and I was really frustrated because I wasn't mixing it in like a proper way, and I just didn't know because I was just sort of like feeling it out. And Sophie taught me a lot about like recording vocals and mixing vocals and drum production and just those sort of things, you know, like very specific, detailed elements of music production, but then also just on a more general scale, like always being attentive and helpful and sharing, like always would let me use their music studio when they're away from London.
So cool.
Not just me, but our other friends as well. You know, it was really like the energy was just really about like prioritizing the music and not letting other.
You've also collaborated together, right?
Yeah, exactly. So and all the music that I've made since I was starting out, she was the only person who I shared it with whilst I was making it, because that I just trusted her opinion a lot. And I knew that they would be honest and like just genuinely helpful. Yeah. So when I was making this album Dreamer, I couldn't really stop thinking about her because this was the first music I was making without her being around, like without having that person that you could share it with, and that actually made me feel quite lost actually, because I was like, wow, who am I going to talk to about this? Or that process of sharing whilst you're creating is like so special. Yeah. And we'd do it with each other.
So I wonder if that helped you develop sort of going in deeper within yourself, because you didn't have that, you know, like that. You might have pulled, you know, you kind of went somewhere.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's just still like, it's been 2 years and it's still just like raw. Yeah. And so I don't talk about it in too much detail. I want people to know that, this music is for one of my friends who died, that I think about a lot. But I think you're probably right that when you're in this kind of like, you feel sort of high and dry. Yeah. And then it makes you have to figure out things in a different way. But
well, it's a beautiful album. I can understand, like even with my older friends, like you've pulled in all these beautiful sounds that and that attach. Like I guess for me it also resonates with an era in my life that from say 80s, and I know that where the people in my age group have also connected with the music that way as well. It sort of brings back these experiences. It's a special album. You're amazing. I really appreciate this chat, and I wish you all the very best with your career and the success, and looking forward to exploring more stuff with you in the future.
Also likewise, like, you know, we've known each other for quite a few years now, and you're part of the journey as well, like, you know.
Thank you.
On the last trip to Australia, like, you were the one who booked that whole tour, and then also my first ever live show in Dubai as well recently. So, you know, you're part of the journey as well, and I'm really happy that we cross paths, that we know each other, and then hopefully do more together as well.
Absolutely. Thanks again, Nabihah.
Okay, thank you too.
Bye-bye.